Hey guys, tonight we slip into something cursed. Not silk or velvet. No, just soggy leather boots, a belt of rusted charms, and a cloak that smells like fear. You're not a hero. You're not a savior. You're something lonelier, hungrier, and far more dangerous. You're a witch hunter. And it's 16:05. You move through the village while the rest of it sleeps. If sleep even comes easy in a place like this. The moon is thin and shivering. The fog so thick, it clings to your eyelashes. Roofs sag like they've heard too many secrets. A dog growls behind a fence, then goes quiet, like it realizes who you are. Even dogs can tell. If you're walking the village at night and you're not afraid of the dark, it probably means someone else should be. And you keep walking. Because someone swears a woman in the woods has been singing to the roots again. They say her eyes glow when she laughs. They say men who hear her voice forget their wives. That she's too beautiful to be holy. And maybe that's the worst part of your job. Not the cold, not the guilt, but the fact that the ones you're sent to destroy are rarely twisted old hags. No, they're radiant, magnetic, smiling in ways that pull something loose in your chest. You were trained to kill witches, but no one trained you for what happens when they look at you like they already know what you dream about. If you're enjoying the vibe, give it a like and hit subscribe. It's free, and you can always unsubscribe if your tastes change. Oh, also, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. Midnight in Montana? Dusk in Denmark? I love reading them. Now go ahead and relax. Let your eyes go soft. The cloak's heavy. The work is grimmer than it sounds, and the real horror. It's how quietly it changes you. The accused is a woman. She's shaking. Smells like turnip stew and sorrow. Probably worked on her feet since dawn, and now she's facing you. You, like your death's little brother. You recite the town decree from memory, half mumbling, half singing it in that chant they taught you. She's confused, mumbling about prayer and her cat. You're already writing the name in your book, next to a rough doodle of a broom you drew last night when you couldn't sleep. You lead her away. No one stops you. That's the secret no one tells you when you sign up. The people want you to do this. Not because they believe in witches, most don't, but because it makes them feel safe. It gives shape to the unease. The bad harvest? Witches. The plague last spring? Witches. That weird birthmark on your cousin's baby? Absolutely, 100% demonic. You march her through the dark, mud slurping at your boots. She stumbles. You almost offer a hand, but then remember you're not supposed to. Witch hunters do not comfort witches. It's in the handbook. Page 4. Your torch fizzles. Again, you pass the tavern. No one makes eye contact. Even the drunkest patrons suddenly find the wood grain of the table very interesting. You're not welcome there, not really. You're a necessary infection. A scab they don't want to pick. You reach the church. Always the church. Even if the priest's asleep or pretending to be. You bang the door with the hilt of your dagger. Eventually, the latch turns and a sleepy voice lets you in. The room's cold and smells like wax and judgment. You leave the woman in the corner and report your findings. She blinked oddly. You whisper, "Left eye first. That's in the list." The priest nods solemnly. He hasn't updated that list since Queen Elizabeth still had teeth. Outside, the wind howls like it's being cheated out of something. Historians still argue whether these hunts were more about control than belief. Were people truly terrified of witches? Or was it just a convenient way to deal with the poor, the strange, and the inconveniently female? You scratch your name on another form. You hope you spelled it right this time. Later, you try to sleep. The cot in the vestry creaks. The candle burns low. You close your eyes and try not to think about the girl's face, or how she reminded you of someone. Maybe your cousin, maybe your neighbor. It's all blending together now. Something scuttles under the cot. You pretend you didn't hear it. The next morning, you wake up to a rooster that sounds like it's dying, probably because it lives next to the church bell. Your back is stiff, your mouth tastes like dust, and someone's stolen one of your socks. Again. You don't even bother looking for it. Instead, you reach for your ledger, the one with all the names, accusations, and little drawings you doodle during long sermons. You flip to the expenses page. It's bleak. Your earnings from the last 3 villages total 12 copper coins, a small jar of pickled onions, and a vaguely insulting IOU signed with a fish-shaped stamp. You run your fingers over the parchment and sigh. Your cloak's getting holes, your boots leak like drunk gossip, and your belt buckle gave up during last week's arrest. No one becomes a witch hunter for the money. You were told there'd be compensation, but they didn't say how, or when, or whether compensation included a half-eaten meat pie offered by a terrified landlord. Spoiler, it did, and it was cold. You pull on your boots anyway. They squish. Your employer, technically a collection of vaguely overlapping authorities, none of whom have actually met, is supposed to pay for your lodging. But lodging often means the hayloft above a donkey stable or a corner of the church where you get side-eyed by dusty saints. In one town, they made you sleep in the confessional. You heard everything. You wander to the inn to ask about breakfast, hoping the new innkeeper is less terrified of you than the last one. He isn't. He stutters, drops a tray, and offers you stale bread and something that might have been cheese 3 seasons ago. You eat it anyway. Pride doesn't keep you warm. A child peeks at you through the banister. You flash a smile. He runs. You're used to this. You walk through town like a ghost with a badge, followed by whispers and mutters and sometimes spit. Not directly. No one's that bold, but enough to hear the wet thwap behind you on the wall. Even when they want you here, they don't want you here. You remember once, a woman left a wreath of herbs outside your door, supposedly to thank you. Later that night, someone else threw a chicken head at your window. It's hard to tell who's on your side. Maybe no one. Historians still argue whether the average witch hunter believed the things they enforced. Some claim hunters were fanatics, true believers. Others insist they were just broke, desperate men playing a cruel game of survival. You step around a puddle that's probably more than just rain. The village square is waking up. Blacksmiths stoking fires, merchants muttering about spoons, and an old man trying to sell a cat with one eye. You nod at no one. No one nods back. You head toward the council chamber, if it can be called that. It's a damp room above the grain store where 3 men in hats meet to argue about fence lines and spiritual corruption. One of them, the oldest, always stares at you like you've kicked his goat. You probably haven't. Today they hand you a complaint written in scratchy ink on a piece of cloth. Apparently, a local widow grows unusually large cabbages. Also, she once sneezed backward. Highly suspect. You sigh. The cabbage thing again. You trudge toward her cottage on the edge of town, passing hedges shaped like sad things, and a scarecrow that seems to follow you with its button eyes. The door to her cottage is open. The widow is inside, humming. She's stirring something in a pot that smells better than anything you've eaten in months. She looks up and gives a thin smile. Back again. You nod. She points to a stool. You sit. She pours you broth. She doesn't ask why you're here. She knows. You both know. The thing is, you've checked her before. Found nothing. No marks, no incantations, no goats with secrets. Just a woman who's lived too long, talks to the wind, and makes good soup. But that's enough sometimes. You take out your needle. You're supposed to test for insensitivity, prick the skin, and see if she reacts. It's not science. It's not even reliable. But it's procedure. She holds out her arm. You press the needle in. She winces. Still human, you mutter. She smiles. For now, you jot a note in your book. No further action. At least not yet. You leave the soup half finished and walk out without a word. You feel her gaze follow you down the path. The wind picks up. It smells like something burning. You pass a group of children playing with sticks. One of them shouts something in Latin, badly. You pause. He looks guilty. You let it slide. You don't have the energy to explain that muttering fake spells for fun isn't technically illegal. Yet, you reach the edge of town and look back. Smoke curls from the chimneys. Church bells ring in the distance. Somewhere, someone's accusing someone else of looking at their cow the wrong way. You feel your shoulders sag. You didn't sleep well. You never do. There's no glory here. No medals. No triumph. Just wet boots, cold stares, and the knowledge that you'll probably die in a town no one remembers for reasons no one believes. You adjust your badge. It's starting to tarnish. You turn over. Your back aches. The air is heavy with incense and regret. Your boots are still wet. You trudge back into the village with the same slow rhythm your boots always fall into. Squelch, squelch, thud. The bells have stopped. Someone is chopping firewood. And from somewhere nearby, a baby starts crying with the dramatic flair of a medieval opera singer. You ignore it. Not your jurisdiction. Not unless that baby starts levitating or speaking Latin backwards. Then it's your problem. For now, it's just another shrill reminder that life here grinds forward, whether you're hunting witches or dreaming of a better coat. You reach the town hall again, or at least the moldy stone barn pretending to be a seat of authority. Today you have a meeting. Meeting is a generous term. Really, it's an extended sigh between you and the town's clerk, Gregory, whose entire personality is shaped like a stack of damp paper. Gregory has opinions. He also has 6 children and a single working quill. His desk looks like it's losing a fight with mildew. Back so soon, he says, not looking up. He's still working on the petition from last week about banning left-handed scythe use. I assume you're here for the arrest forms. You nod and gesture toward the blank parchment. It's the same form every time. Name, crime, description of suspicious behavior, and whether the accused owns any suspicious cats. Did you file the search order for that widow yet? You ask. Gregory snorts. Takes a week. Longer if the mayor's cousin is in town. He's allergic to paperwork, literally, breaks out in hives. You roll your eyes and take the forms. You've learned not to ask questions. Bureaucracy moves like an elderly mule. Slowly, stubbornly, and with frequent stops to poop. You head to your favorite spot in the council building, the slightly less moldy windowsill that lets in a sliver of light and is far enough from the privy that you can think clearly. You lay out the form and begin the ritual. Feather, ink, blot, sigh. The name is hard to spell. It always is. You take a wild guess and draw a small mushroom in the corner for fun. No one checks. You could fill these with doodles of dancing frogs, and no one would notice unless the frogs confessed. You once tried to suggest updating the forms, maybe streamline things, add check boxes. you were laughed out of the room. Then asked if you were under suspicion. You've never made that mistake again. Historians still argue whether the complex legalistic rituals around witch accusations were meant to legitimize the process or simply confuse everyone into compliance. You lean toward the latter. Nothing inspires obedience like the slow terror of misunderstood paperwork. A scribe from another town once told you he knew a judge who rejected a case because the ink color was too cheerful. Too much hope in the red, he said. You finish the form and walk it back to Gregory, who's now arguing with a farmer about goat-related zoning. You slip it onto the stack. He grunts in approval. That's the closest thing you'll get to praise today. Then it's time to log the witching supplies. You unlock your trunk, the one that smells like cedar and broken dreams. Inside, a tarnished compass, useless, 2 iron pins slightly bent, a vial of holy water, which you suspect is just wine, and the official Witch Hunter's Manual, Edition 3, which includes a diagram of the devil shaped suspiciously like Gregory. The tools are mostly props. You know it. The town knows it. But they expect the show. So you take them out, polish the pins, hold the manual like it's sacred. You almost feel silly. Almost. Once, you caught a child using your holy water to clean his shoes. It made the mud run away, he said, wide-eyed. You confiscated it, then secretly tried it on your own boots. No such luck. One of the more fringe entries in the manual suggests using a mirror to catch a witch's true reflection, which you did, until you realized it just made people nervous and occasionally nauseous. The manual also claims that witches fear onions, left-handed crosses, and mirrors angled at the moon. You're still not sure if the moon part was a joke. You try not to think about how much of your job is theater, but when your entire toolkit looks like a medieval magic trick set, it's hard not to. You pack up and head out. There's a hearing scheduled. Someone's been accused of drying herbs in a suspicious pattern. You've seen this one before. It's always someone with too much time and not enough friends. At the hearing, the accused stands on a crate. The crowd murmurs. You glance at the dried herbs. They spell nothing. They're not even sorted. You'd call it bad housekeeping, not sorcery. But the accuser insists. She placed them in the shape of the devil's grin, he says, gesturing wildly. You squint. They look like a clump of weeds to you. The judge sighs. We'll need to verify. You're the verifier. Of course. You nod solemnly and lean in. Sniff the herbs. Poke them with a stick. Whisper a fake Latin phrase under your breath. It's all part of the act. The villagers lean forward. You stand up and declare. These herbs are inconclusive. Gasps. Murmurs. You write it down. Inconclusive herbs. That'll look good in your report. You head back to your room as the sky turns gray again. You light a candle. It sputters. You pull off your boots. The left one leaks smoke. That can't be good. You lie back and stare at the rafters. They creak. You wonder what it would be like to do anything else. Be a tanner, maybe? Or a baker. Even a juggler. At least then you'd be welcome at the tavern. You close your eyes and drift just for a moment before someone pounds on the door. Another accusation. Another form. You sigh and reach for your pen. You wake up the next morning to the sound of chickens screaming. Not clucking, screaming. Turns out the butcher's apprentice tripped and released half a coop into the square. Feathers everywhere. One gets stuck in your bootstrap. You pull it out with a groan and brush your cloak, which now sports something suspiciously egg-shaped and sticky. Today is Tools Day. You're due to inspect and recalibrate the official witch hunting kit. It's the same battered trunk you've been hauling around since your first appointment. And every time you open it, you get a whiff of mildew, candle wax, and something faintly metallic. Maybe rust, maybe shame. First, the infamous witch pricker. It's supposed to be sharp enough to pierce the devil's mark without drawing blood. Yours, however, is bent at the tip and rusted halfway down. You tested it once on your own thumb. Bled like a beheaded goose. Not very devil-proof. Then there's the magnifying glass. Cracked right down the center. You use it anyway, mostly for dramatic effect. Squinting through it while muttering makes villagers nervous. And that's half the battle. Last month, you discovered a dark spot on a woman's leg using it. Turned out to be a birthmark, shaped like a potato. Still made it into the report. The witch scale is perhaps the most laughable. In theory, it helps determine if a suspect weighs more or less than a volume of water equal to their size. In practice, it's just two mismatched buckets on a seesaw plank, and the only person who's ever failed the test was a traveling acrobat with hollow bones and a grudge against authority. The handbook insists the devil's servants float. So does driftwood. So does your hat, which you tested once out of sheer boredom. It bobbed merrily for 10 minutes before a goose took it. Historians still argue whether these tools were taken seriously or simply functioned as props in a deeply flawed performance. You suspect the latter, especially when you remember the case of the cursed carrot, a warped vegetable used as evidence in a trial that lasted 6 hours and ended in unanimous laughter. One fringe theory, buried deep in your manual's footnotes, suggests that iron needles cause devils to scream. You tried it once. The accused just burped and asked for a blanket. You carefully wipe down the pricker, fold a bit of cloth around the cracked glass, and return the items to the chest. There's a certain reverence to the ritual, even if it's fake. The town expects you to perform it, the same way they expect the bells to ring and the bread to rise, even when the baker's drunk and the bells are cracked. You lug the chest to your next appointment. A farmer who claims his cow now speaks fluent Flemish. You doubt the cow even speaks moo. But off you go, through mud and complaints, until you reach the farm. The farmer waves you toward the barn, his eyes wide with awe and fear. "She did it again this morning," he insists. "Right after I gave her turnips. Said, 'Dank u well?' Plain as day." You open the barn door. The cow stares at you. You stare back. She blinks. You blink. A soft moo escapes her, as uninspired as your career trajectory. You whisper to her. "Say something then." She chews. You poke her gently with the pricker. She moos again, but in a distinctly unimpressive tone. The farmer peers in, eyes hopeful. "She said anything?" "She's definitely chewing." You offer. He deflates. "Maybe it was just my wife in the other stall." You jot it down anyway. Cow declared innocent. Flemish status, undetermined. The sun is hot now and your cloak clings like a damp insult. You head back toward the village, passing two boys using sticks to sword fight over a pie. They pause to gawk at you. One whispers, "That's him, the hunter who caught the tow lady." You keep walking. You don't have the heart to tell them the tow lady just had bad shoes and arthritis. At the town well, you stop to drink. The bucket smells slightly of turnips. A passing elder spits near your feet. Not at you, but not at you either. You're used to it. Witch hunters aren't exactly adored. One village gifted you a goose once. You thought it was respect. Turns out it was a warning. Geese were sacred there. You spend a week being followed by angry pilgrims. Back at your quarters, you unload the chest. now heavier with moisture and disappointment. You take out the handbook and flip to the section on unusual familiars. There's a badly drawn picture of a hedgehog with horns and a caption that simply says, "Suspicious." You underline it for fun. You stretch out on the cot, arms behind your head. The ceiling above you has a crack that looks a bit like a screaming face if you squint. You've been squinting at it for weeks now. It still hasn't spoken. You drift for a while, hovering in that in-between place where thoughts are soft and heavy. Then a bell rings. A slow, deliberate clang that means only one thing: another accusation. You groan, sit up, put on the damp boots again. The left one squeaks with defiance. The right one leaks like gossip in a sewing circle. Outside, the town square is already gathering. You spot the accuser. It's the tanner's boy this time. He points toward the baker's assistant. "She floated in her sleep." He cries. "She what?" "I saw it." "Her feet? They didn't touch the ground." You eye the assistant. She looks exhausted, covered in flour, probably sleepwalked again like she did last year. You write it down anyway, just in case. You're not sure what's worse, when the town believes everything, or when you start to. You walk the baker's assistant back to your quarters. She's trembling, covered in flour, and muttering something about her dreams. "It was just walking," she says. "I do that sometimes. My mother did too." You nod gently, even as you flip open the form. Sleepwalking isn't a crime, not officially. But levitating, that's dangerous, spectacular, the kind of thing that makes crowds press in, eager to see if someone else's life will fall apart in public. You note it carefully. Witness reports nocturnal elevation. Suspect denies conscious control. You add a doodle of a levitating baguette for your own amusement. She sits in the corner of the room while you light a candle and dig for more charcoal. The candle sputters and burns sideways, probably a metaphor. You glance at her. She's young. Probably hasn't slept in a real bed in weeks. The flour has settled into the creases of her face. She looks like a statue of exhaustion. You offer her a crust of bread. She refuses. You take a bite yourself. It's hard enough to crack a tooth. You chew anyway. The fire's low. You keep watch. Sleepwalking is one thing. Floating would change things. Around midnight, she shifts. Her feet twitch. She mumbles something. You lean forward, just enough to watch. Heart thudding. She stands. Slowly. Her eyes are closed. You hold your breath. She takes one step, then another. On the ground. You sigh. You were hoping for something extraordinary, maybe a miracle, or just a moment that proved your work wasn't all superstition and soggy bread. She walks in a lazy circle, bumps into a chair, and slumps to the floor. Still asleep. You cover her with a blanket and record the event. Suspect demonstrates common parasomnia behavior. No elevation confirmed. Historians still argue whether accusations like these were believed or simply tolerated as a means of social control. Was the point to cleanse society or just control it? Either way, it's your job to write it down. In the morning, the assistant leaves without a word. You watch her vanish into the fog. There's no thank you, no apology. Just two flowery footprints leading away. You clean up. The blanket smells faintly of cinnamon and shame. There's a knock at the door. Gregory again. He's holding a scroll like it might bite him. "You've been summoned," he says, blinking slowly. "Council wants you at the northern village." You groan. That place again. Last time, you were called there for a singing tree. It turned out to be a wind chime tied to a badly pruned apple branch, but they were convinced. absolutely convinced it was a cursed spirit. You pack your chest, rewrap the pricker, test the weight of your pins, tuck the manual under your arm like a reluctant pet. Gregory offers you a travel voucher, one wooden token, and a scribbled note that says, "He's coming. Don't bother locking up the chickens." You head to the stables. Your horse, well, it's technically a mule, greets you with a noise that suggests existential dread. You name him Regret. He lives up to it. The road is muddy as always. Rain begins halfway through your journey and settles in like an uninvited sermon. Trees loom like suspicious bystanders. You wrap your cloak tighter and hum something tuneless. You can't afford to think too deeply on the task ahead, not with that thunder rolling in your spine. At the village edge, a child meets you with wide eyes and muddy cheeks. They say she can see things, she whispers, without looking. You nod. That's very unhelpful. The accused is a washerwoman named Marta, known for folding towels before they're dry and humming strange lullabies. You're led to her hut. Inside, it's warm and smells of lavender. Marta greets you calmly, offers tea. You accept. She pours with hands as steady as a surgeon's. "They think I know secrets," she says. "Do you?" "I know you need better boots," she answers with a wink. You look down. The right one has finally cracked open at the toe. A flap of leather hangs like a tongue. You chuckle. "Fair." She hands you a bundle. "Take this. Charms. For the road." You unwrap it. Dried mint, rosemary, and something that looks suspiciously like garlic bread. The townsfolk whisper that she sees through walls, that she predicted the death of the mayor's goat, that she talks to spiders. You ask her the standard questions. She answers politely. No, she doesn't dream in Latin. No, she hasn't danced with spirits under the moon. Yes, she owns a black cat, but he's mostly useless. You note it all down. Every word, every tremor, every smile. Before you leave, she stops you. "You don't really believe all this, do you?" You hesitate. "No," you admit, "but it doesn't matter." Outside, the villagers stare at you like you're carrying a curse, or worse, doubt. You mount Regret, who immediately tries to sit down and protest. You coax him forward. The road home is long, and the air tastes like wet leaves and missed opportunities. Halfway back, you remember Marta's gift. You reach into your satchel and pull out a small pouch. Inside, a single coin, silver. Your first real coin in months. You wake the next morning with the coin still clutched in your palm like some kind of spell. Silver. Real. Cold. You rub it against your thumb, just to feel its edges bite back. A witch hunter's breakfast, stale bread, tepid water, and the thrill of not being completely broke for once. Your boots are still damp. Of course they are. You scrape off yesterday's regrets and lace them up. Your cloak smells like every type of disappointment. Smoke, sweat, mold, and that weird lavender Marta wrapped into her charms. You sniff it once more. Still smells better than Gregory. You step outside. The street is coated in morning mist. People part around you like you're contagious, which, let's be honest, you probably are. Hygiene wasn't exactly in the Witch Hunter manual. Page 1, fear the devil. Page 2, stab it with a stick. Page 3, change socks monthly. Optional. You pass the baker, who doesn't meet your eyes. You pass the butcher, who does, but only to glare. You see children whisper behind their palms and pretend to throw invisible curses. One girl actually mutters something under her breath and makes a hex sign. You smile and wink. She screams and runs. Kids. Back at the church, you find Gregory waiting with another stack of forms and his usual expression, 1 part constipation, 2 parts disappointment. "We've had a letter," he says, as if the parchment itself might explode. You take it, wax seal. Heavy, official. You recognize the insignia, a bishop's ring, flanked by 2 scowling angels and a suspiciously phallic torch. You break it open. Inside is a summons. He's coming. He being Bishop Alwyn, Inquisitor Emeritus, and self-declared scourge of unholiness. Last time he visited, 3 people got arrested for sneezing too symmetrically. He arrives tomorrow. You exhale through your nose. The bishop is the worst kind of zealot, the charming kind, with perfect hair, velvet gloves, and a gaze that slices like a blessed dagger. He speaks in riddles. He quotes scripture no one remembers. And he once burned a spinning wheel because it gave him pagan vibes. You spend the rest of the morning preparing, which is to say, scrubbing the wax stains off the pews, re-inking your signature in the ledger, and hiding anything even vaguely resembling joy. The bishop hates joy, especially laughter, or card games, or pie. By mid-afternoon, you've reviewed the honor protocols for Inquisitor visits. You are to stand when addressed, kneel when dismissed, and avoid all eye contact unless he initiates it. Basically, act like you're in the presence of an angry peacock with divine authority. You try not to think about last time. Back then, he questioned you for 2 hours straight. Wanted to know why your last report had no mention of witch smells. The stench of sulfur is the mark of sin, he said, and yet your parchment smells only of mold. You'd barely stopped yourself from asking if that wasn't a blessing. Historians still argue whether figures like Bishop Alwyn were true believers or political players. Some think he saw devils in every shadow. Others suspect he just liked the power. And the robes. The man has a closet of them. That night, you don't sleep. You lie awake, watching moonlight crawl across your floor like a guilty thought. You wonder if Marta knew this would happen. You wonder if you should have said thank you. At dawn, the bells ring. He arrives with a horse so white it practically glows. His cloak trails behind him like a storm cloud. 3 attendants hop down from the wagon, all with shaved heads and matching robes. One is carrying a velvet cushion with a single polished tooth on it. No one explains why. The bishop dismounts with grace, like he's floated down on judgment. "Witch hunter," he says. You bow. Not too low, not too fast, just enough. He nods. "I trust your village has remained pure?" You pause. "Relatively." He arches a brow. "I mean, yes, your grace, pure. Mostly." He walks past you. You follow like a punished puppy. Inside, the townsfolk have gathered. Gregory is sweating through 3 layers of wool. The baker is trying not to cry. The butcher has vanished entirely. The bishop takes the pulpit, clears his throat, and begins what can only be described as a poetic threat. He speaks of fire, of cleansing, of rot beneath the harvest, of smiles that hide curses, of cats who blink wrong, of cabbages that grow too large. You nod along, trying not to yawn. Then he turns to you. "Witch hunter, stand." You do. He produces a scroll. "Herein are the accusations brought to my attention in recent months. You will answer for them." You gulp. "Yes, your grace." He begins to read. "A woman accused of singing to bread. A man who sleeps too deeply. A child who predicted the weather. A mule with 2 different colored eyes. Each accusation more absurd than the last. You answer each one with as much dignity as you can. The bread was excellent, but uninspired. He snores like a dying goat. She guessed it would rain. It did. The mule is just unfortunate." He frowns. "So no convictions?" None, Your Grace. He closes the scroll. Troubling. You're sweating now. He leans in, voice soft. You have grown soft. You swallow. I follow the law, Your Grace. His eyes narrow. The law is not enough. Then he smiles, which is somehow worse. He turns to the crowd. Fear not. I will remain here for a week. We shall observe. You exhale slowly. A week. A whole week of walking on eggshells. Religious, cracked, judgmental eggshells. After the sermon, he retires to the manor. You're left in the square, surrounded by townsfolk who now look at you with pity. The witch hunter? Hunted. You head back to your quarters, light a candle, take off your boots. They squeak, exhausted. You sit and stare. This week is going to be long. You don't even bother lighting the second candle. What's the point? The bishop has brought his own. Thick, dripping monstrosities that smell faintly of sanctimony and imported frankincense. One of his attendants sets up a shrine in the chapel's side room, complete with golden relics and a screaming saint carved entirely from ivory. The saint's eyes follow you. You try not to notice. By morning, you've had 2 dreams about being burned at the stake for yawning during prayer. You wake with a jolt and a stiff neck, roll over, and groan into your pillow. First order of the day. Avoid Bishop Alwyn. Easier said than done. He's already in the square by dawn, delivering another sermon to a collection of terrified villagers and one mildly confused goose. His voice rings out like thunder wrapped in silk. And so we must cut away the rot, lest the orchard fall to ruin. Someone claps. You're not sure who, probably one of the attendants. You try to duck behind a cart stacked with onions, but too late. He sees you. Ah, witch hunter. He calls, voice smooth as a blade. Come, walk with me. You obey. Of course you do. You don't say no to the bishop, not unless you're looking for an early retirement via public pyre. He walks slowly, deliberately, the hem of his cloak gliding just above the mud as if he's on rails. I reviewed your records, he says, tone casual. Curious omissions. You tense. Which ones, Your Grace? No mention of night terrors, or glowing livestock, or screaming wells. Have you encountered none? You shake your head. Only screaming people, Your Grace. He laughs. Short, sharp. Pity. Still, we mustn't let our vigilance falter. He stops in front of a hovel with crooked shutters and a door that looks recently kicked. He turns to you. This one. You blink. This one. What? This one is hiding something. I feel it. You pause. With respect, Your Grace, this house belongs to the town seamstress. She's 73. He smiles. Evil is not bound by age. You resist the urge to sigh or run. The seamstress answers the door with a nervous curtsy and a mouthful of biscuit. You stand awkwardly behind the bishop as he scans the room like a bloodhound in a brocade cape. I sense a presence, he intones. You glance around. There's a cat asleep on a cushion, a teacup half full, a pile of unspooled thread on the floor. He points. Thread. Red. The devil's color. It's for embroidery, you murmur. He ignores you. He picks up the cat. It blinks, offended. Does it speak? You shrug. Not in Latin. The bishop places the cat down like it might explode. The seamstress offers tea. He declines. You accept. Your hands shake slightly as you sip it. In the end, he leaves without declaring her a witch. Barely. You file a note in your ledger. Investigation prompted by color. Cat remains unhelpful. Historians still argue whether inquisitors truly believed in their divine intuition or simply leveraged theatrical fear. Some say Bishop Alwyn once accused a broom of heresy. Others claim he's never wrong. You lean toward the broom theory. As the day crawls on, you're summoned again. This time by Gregory, whose expression says everything. It's happening again. In the council chamber, the bishop is already seated. Beside him sits a girl, maybe 13, with eyes wide as saucers and braids tight as suspicion. She has confessed, the bishop says simply. You blink. Confessed to what? To meeting with a forest spirit. You turn to the girl. Is that true? She shrugs. It was a squirrel, and I gave it an acorn. It stared at me funny. You nod solemnly. Did the squirrel speak? No, she says, but I felt it. The bishop leans back like this proves his entire career. There, evidence. You jot it down. Suspicious rodent behavior. Witness claims emotional telepathy. She's a child, you say quietly. She is old enough to feel corruption, he replies, his voice ice-wrapped in velvet. Later, you walk the girl home. She kicks stones and hums to herself. You ask if she's scared. She shakes her head. You're not scary, she says. He is. You nod. Yeah, he is. When you return, the bishop is waiting. You know he's not done. Witch hunter, he says. Your instincts are dulled. Your spirit is untested. You bow slightly. I've tested it plenty, Your Grace. He steps closer. Then you won't mind a trial. For your benefit. You blink. A trial? Something to sharpen your judgment. A test. Public. Educational. You feel your stomach twist. Who's the accused? He smiles. You'll see. That evening, the town is gathered in the square. Torches flicker. Shadows stretch. The air smells of anticipation and cold fear. The accused is Marta. Of course it is. She stands calmly, face unreadable. The bishop turns to the crowd. This woman, he declares, has trafficked in forbidden knowledge. She has distributed charms, herbs, worn symbols of older gods. You step forward. She's a healer. Everyone here knows that. He raises a brow. Are you defending her? I'm stating the truth. He paces. Then examine her. Follow protocol. Show us your process. You glance at Marta. She nods, just slightly. You go through the motions. The pricker. The magnifier. You check her arms, her back. Nothing. You sniff her hair. Rosemary and defiance. You turn to the bishop. No marks. No reaction. No sign of possession. He frowns. And the herbs? Mint. Thyme. Not forbidden. He considers this. The crowd is silent. Then let her go, he says finally. But remember, hesitation is complicity. You escort Marta away. She squeezes your hand once before vanishing into the dark. Back in your quarters, you collapse onto the cot. You stare at the ceiling. The crack has grown. It now looks like a screaming angel. You whisper, I know the feeling. You wake up with the echo of that phrase still in your ears. Hesitation is complicity. The bishop's words slithered in while you slept, twisted themselves around your spine like ivy, and rooted deep in your nerves. You sit up slowly, heart thudding, and squint at the window. The sun hasn't risen yet. Or maybe it has, and just doesn't want to show its face today. Can't blame it. Your boots go on like iron shackles, still wet, still stubborn. You tie the laces with fingers that tremble slightly. Not fear. Fatigue. Probably. Outside, the air is heavy. Too quiet. Even the chickens have shut up, which usually means something's gone wrong or someone's gone missing. You trudge toward the church, stepping over puddles that smell faintly of soap and regret. Gregory is already there, fussing with parchments that look even more tired than he does. His eyes dart up. You look awful, he says. I sleep better in stocks, you reply. He doesn't laugh, just hands you a sealed envelope with a raised wax insignia. Not the bishop's this time. This seal bears the crown and sickle mark of the Royal Witch Inquiry Office. You blink. That office hasn't sent correspondence in months. Inside, a neatly written order. You're to investigate a series of strange reports from the outskirts. A hamlet near the marshes. 3 families. All afraid. 1 woman missing. The report is vague, but the implication is clear. They think it's a true witch. The capital wants answers. And fast. You show it to the bishop. He barely glances at it. A distraction, he declares. Stick to the village. Your task is here. You nod, then don't listen, because something about that report itches under your skin, like a whisper you can't quite catch. So, without much ceremony, you pack your gear and slip away in the early afternoon. You tell Gregory to lie if anyone asks. He grunts and returns to listing cows with questionable birthmarks. The path to the marsh hamlet is narrow and rutted, barely passable even in good weather. Today it's all mud and fog. Regret, your mule, groans with every step. You pat his side. Yeah, I didn't sign up for this either. Along the way, the forest grows dense. The trees here lean inward like they're telling secrets. Branches touching overhead, shadows pooling beneath their roots. It feels different. Not haunted exactly, just watchful. Halfway through, you spot a figure by the path. Small, hooded. You stop. They don't move. You clear your throat. You all right? They raise a hand. Point. You follow the gesture. Off the road, down a trail that wasn't there a moment ago. You blink. The figure is gone. Historians still argue whether witch hunters were prone to hallucinations from stress or something darker. Isolation, insomnia, tainted water. You're not sure, but that path is very real now. And you're curious. You tie regret to a branch and take the trail. It winds through thickets, under arched boughs. You duck, step carefully, breathing shallow. There's a hum in the air, like bees, or voices too soft to name. Then you see it. A hut, half swallowed by moss and vine. Smoke curls from the chimney, slow and lazy. You approach. The door opens before you knock. A woman stands there, ageless and unbothered. She wears no shoes. Her hair is streaked with silver and gold, like it can't decide which story to tell. You're late, she says. You hesitate? You were expecting me? She shrugs. Not you exactly, but someone like you. You step inside. The air smells of lemon balm and honey. Crystals dangle from the rafters. A crow watches you from the beam. She pours tea. Doesn't ask. You sit. Because you want to. Because it feels like you should. You're not a witch, you say. Of course I am, she replies. You pause. But not the kind your bishop fears, she adds. Not the kind that burns. I'm the kind that remembers. You stare into your cup. She gestures toward the wall, painted symbols, shifting ever so slightly. The families who called you? They were afraid. Something did come, but not me. What then, you ask? A fear so old it forgot its name, she says, and it's not done yet. You look at her again? Really look, and you realize she's not lying. This is new territory, the fringe of belief, the edge where history trips into myth. You finish the tea. Outside, the fog begins to lift. You ask her name. She laughs. Names are for stories. You already have enough of those. She gives you a pouch. Inside, salt, iron, and something soft you can't identify. Keep it close, she says, and try not to believe everything you're told. You return to the village. The path behind you vanishes. By the time you get back, the bishop is waiting. You were warned, he says, cold fury under silk. I was summoned. You reply. He studies your face. Did you find anything? You shrug. Maybe. He nods once. Then be ready. The next accusation will be yours. You don't sleep that night. The wind howls through the cracks in your roof, and the pouch she gave you glows faintly in the candlelight. You clutch it tighter, because maybe the bishop is right. Maybe demons don't RSVP. The next morning, you open your eyes to a world that feels heavier than usual. The bishop's words echo with a weight you can't shake. The next accusation will be yours. You swing your legs off the cot and stare at your boots. They look back at you like they're reconsidering this partnership. You slide them on anyway, despite the squish in the left one and the cracked sole in the right. Every step is a little reminder that comfort was never part of the job description. When you step outside, the village square feels off. People don't just avoid your gaze today. They scatter entirely. One woman actually crosses herself as you pass. A young boy spits at the ground and then runs before you can say anything. Even Gregory won't meet your eyes. He's standing by the notice board, hands twitching near a freshly pinned sheet of parchment. You walk over, heart sinking. The writing is clear, precise. Let it be known. The witch hunter himself stands accused of fraternizing with dark forces, abandoning his post, and consorting with a marsh witch. You stare at it for a long time. The ink is still damp. Well, you mutter, guess I'm trending. The bishop watches from the chapel steps. He's smiling, not warmly, not kindly. His is the smile of a man who has spent decades sharpening his doctrine like a blade, and now he gets to use it. You brought this on yourself, he says softly. You nod. Wasn't aware honesty was treason. No, he replies, but disobedience is. Historians still argue whether these late-period trials were motivated by theology, politics, or personal vendettas. You're currently leaning hard toward personal vendetta. Gregory finally approaches. He tries to speak, can't, then just hands you a small bag. Inside are your identification badge, your feather pen, and the official witch hunter's ledger. All your tools, all your names, your whole career, now neatly bundled like the belongings of a man who won't need them anymore. The bishop addresses the village. His voice is honeyed thunder, all fire and righteousness. The corruption has touched even the keeper of our safety. He declares, and now justice will be restored. You're escorted to the chapel cellar. Not quite a prison, but not freedom either. Damp walls, a low ceiling, a single candle sputtering in the corner. They take your boots. Of course they do. You sit on the floor. Listen to footsteps above. The bishop's voice rising and falling. He's already retelling your story. Rewriting it, turning your careful investigations into heresies, your hesitations into signs of guilt. You wonder if Marta knows. Hours pass. Then, footsteps again. A door creaks, and there she is, Marta, cloaked, quiet, eyes glinting. How? You start. Gregory, she says, slipping you a wrapped parcel. He's not brave, but he's tired of watching. Inside the bundle, bread, a knife, and your boots. You almost laugh. Didn't think I'd miss these. You're not safe here, she whispers. The bishop plans to put you on trial tomorrow, publicly. The charges are written. He wants to make an example. Of course he does. He doesn't understand what you saw, or what's coming. You stare at her. Do you? She nods, enough to know that he's afraid. She helps you lace the boots. You try not to wince. Your feet are swollen. Your pride bruised in new and exciting places. As she turns to go, she presses a charm into your hand, carved bone, strung on a thin piece of twine. It pulses faintly. Keep this hidden. It's old, older than him, older than all this. You tuck it under your shirt. That night, you don't sleep. The cellar walls whisper. Maybe it's just the wind. Maybe not. You grip the charm and think about the marsh witch, the strange humming path, the shifting symbols on the hut wall. You think about the bishop, so certain, so loud, and you wonder, what if he's right? What if you have been changed? The next morning, the trial begins. You're brought up from the cellar in chains that are mostly for show. The bishop wants fear, not justice. The townsfolk are gathered like it's a festival. Children sit on barrels. Vendors sell boiled eggs. One man offers bets. The bishop steps onto the platform, arms wide. Brothers, sisters. This man, once protector, now stands corrupted. He spins the tale well. He always does. You nearly start to believe it yourself. When it's your turn to speak, the crowd hushes. You clear your throat. I did what I was trained to do. I followed the signs. I used the tools you gave me. The bishop snorts. And when the signs led to sympathy, to witch women and pagan roads, I listened, you say. I didn't judge before understanding. You hesitated. You look out at the crowd, faces tight with fear, with hunger for simplicity. No, you say. I saw. He moves fast, too fast. His hand slaps your face, and your head snaps sideways. The devil makes good speeches too, he hisses. And that's when the sky changes. The charm at your chest grows hot. The clouds above twist. A wind rises. The bishop falters. People scream. And from the back of the crowd, laughter. Marta stands at the edge of the square, hood pulled back, eyes shining. She raises one hand. A gust of wind lifts every paper in the square, swirling them like birds. Then, silence. Even the bishop can't speak. You look at him, at the crowd, and you smile. Maybe you have changed. Maybe demons don't RSVP, but sometimes neither do gods. The papers still flutter through the air. Petitions, accusations, sermons, all caught in the current, like they're searching for new owners. One sheet slaps Gregory in the face. He doesn't remove it, just stands there blinking, like he's seen his future written in ink. The bishop has gone very still. His cloak no longer billows. His hands, once graceful in gesture, now twitch at his sides like they're unsure what they're allowed to do. The crowd shifts uneasily. They don't know who to fear now. You take a step forward, just one. The chains clink, but no one stops you. You turn toward Marta. She's still standing at the edge, calm as morning fog. Her hand is down now, her face unreadable, but her presence, heavy, like a library full of secrets just breathed. The bishop finally finds his voice. This is manipulation, a trick of the air, stagecraft, pagan sorcery. You tilt your head. Isn't that your entire job? The crowd titters. Not much, just a ripple, enough to break the illusion. You turn back to the bishop. You've accused me without proof. You've told stories, not facts. You forget. I've done this longer than you've worn that ridiculous ring. He recoils like you slapped him. You mock holy office. I mock your office, you say softly, because the chair is empty when justice leaves the room. Historians still argue whether this moment marked a real shift in how witchcraft was prosecuted, or just a strange day in a small town. You'd say it was both, or neither, because this wasn't a revolution. It was a reckoning, the kind that doesn't start with fire. It starts with questions. And this crowd, they have a lot now. The bishop straightens, visibly trembling. Enough of this. Guards. Take him to the stocks. Strip him of his rank. Nothing happens. The guards look at each other. One scratches his head. Another looks at you, then at the bishop, then back again like he's waiting for the wind to pick a side. You raise your arms, still shackled. Go on then. Make an example. Still no one moves. It's Marta who breaks the silence. She steps into the square, slow and sure, as if she's always belonged there. People part for her, not in fear, but in recognition. She doesn't say a word, just raises her hand again. And with it, the charm at her neck, identical to yours. The bishop stares. Pale. Quiet. For once. Symbols, she says, voice carrying like a song half remembered. Words. Belief. That's all you ever had. So what happens when people stop believing you? You close your eyes. The crowd breathes in, then out, and the chains fall. Literally. Clink. Thud. Just like that. You look down at your wrists. Red. Raw but free. The bishop sputters. This is blasphemy. This is sedition. This is tired. You reply. And so are we. You turn to the villagers. How many of you have been accused? Watched neighbors dragged away? Lost family over dreams and tea leaves? How many of you stayed quiet out of fear? A few hands rise. Slowly. A baker. A weaver. Even Gregory. You nod. He doesn't protect you. He frightens you. The bishop steps back. Marta stands beside you now. You glance at her. What happens next? She smiles. Nothing grand. Just truth. And with that, she walks away. The wind follows her. You gather your things. Boots, manual, the pricker you'll never use again. The bishop is still shouting, but fewer people are listening. Some walk away, some just shake their heads. You leave him there on the pulpit, all robes and fury, and no one left to hear it. That night, you sit under the stars on the edge of town. Regret munches grass nearby. The charm around your neck is quiet now, but it hums, every so often, like it knows something you don't. You think about the first day you took this job, the fear, the pride, the ridiculous boots. You think about the faces, accused, accusers, allies. You think about the moments that shaped you, slowly, like water carving stone. Historians still argue about what witch hunters truly believed, but you don't. You know, you believed in order, in justice, in answers. And now you believe in questions. You lean back in the grass, hands behind your head. The stars blink slowly above. You whisper to no one, demons don't RSVP. Then softer, neither do we. You close your eyes, and for the first time in months, you sleep. You wake up with dew in your hair and the mule chewing your sleeve. Regret stares at you with his usual judgmental expression, like he disapproves of your dreams. You push him off gently and sit up, bones popping like firewood. The village is still there, surprisingly intact. You half expected to see the chapel burnt down or the bishop riding off on a horse made of snakes. But no, the bishop remains just quieter, maybe even diminished. He hasn't spoken publicly since the trial. Rumor says he locked himself in the rectory and has only been seen once, shouting at a mirror. You decide to give it a few days before leaving. But a strange thing happens. The village starts treating you like a person. The baker gives you a warm loaf with no side eye. The butcher nods at you instead of hiding the knives. Gregory brings you tea. Tea. You sit outside the inn with a mug between your hands, watching fog rise off the cobblestones, when a boy walks up and asks, "So, are you still a witch hunter?" You take a sip, considering. "I don't think I ever really was," you say. He nods. "Okay." and runs off. Kids are efficient philosophers. You still carry the tools. Out of habit? Maybe ritual? The cracked magnifier? The bent pricker? The ledger with the dancing frog doodles? They weigh less now. Or maybe you do. Later, you're called to the miller's house. His wife is sick. He's worried. She talks in her sleep, he says. Says names she's never heard. You raise a brow. And you're calling me why? He shuffles. Old habits. You enter. The woman is asleep, pale but peaceful. You sit by the bed and listen. Her breath is steady. The names she whispers. They're just names. Nothing sinister. Maybe old memories. Maybe dreams. You write it down anyway. Old habits, after all. You leave a pouch of Marta's herbs by the bedside and walk out without another word. On your way home, a man runs up to you, breathless. The bishop. He pants. He's gone. You pause. Gone? Left this morning. Took his robes, his men. Didn't say a word. You feel nothing. Not joy, not relief. Just a soft release in your chest, like a belt finally loosened. Historians still argue whether Bishop Alwyn vanished into disgrace or found new villages to terrorize. Some say he was recalled by the capital. Others say he wandered into the marshes and never came back. A few even whisper that Marta turned him into a crow. You like that version best. You walk through the village square. Still cobbled, still cracked, but different. Lighter. People talk openly now. There's laughter. Even dancing at dusk. Someone's playing a lute very badly, but no one minds. You return to your quarters. Still the same narrow room, but now it feels more like shelter and less like a sentence. You light a candle and open the ledger. Page after page of names, accusations, oddities, a history of fear. You flip to the last page, blank. You stare at it for a long while, then write a single line. Begin again. No titles, no ranks, just curiosity. You pack lightly, the essentials. A clean quill. Marta's charm. A fresh pair of socks. Finally. Regret the mule size dramatically as you saddle him. You'll like the next place, you lie. You pass the town border before dawn. No fanfare. Just mist and the distant clatter of hooves. Your first stop is a village where people say the moon sings. The second, where bread rises without yeast. The third, where cats hold court at night. You investigate each. No witches. Just people. Tired, weird, wonderful people. Sometimes you help. Sometimes you leave a charm or a word of comfort. Sometimes you just sit and listen. The stories change you. So do the silences. One evening, a woman stops you on the road. Are you the witch hunter? You smile. Not anymore. She tilts her head. Then what are you? You think for a moment. I'm the one who stayed curious. She nods, satisfied. That'll do. You move on. The road never ends, really. It just shifts beneath your boots, changes direction when you blink. The pricker stays at the bottom of your satchel. Useless now, but you keep it. A reminder of who you were, of how easy it was to believe too quickly. One night, under a sky that feels too big to name, you meet another like you. Not a bishop, not a witch, just someone in between. You share stories. Tea, a joke about chickens. You don't trade names, just charms. That's how you know the in-between is growing, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough. It starts raining again. Of course it does. You're halfway between towns. Your cloak has sprung another leak at the shoulder, and regret, ever the optimist, has taken to stopping every 10 feet to nibble on weeds. The road is little more than mud now, a winding scar across a landscape of gray hills and indecisive trees. You pull your hood tighter. Not that it helps. Ahead, you spot an old wayside shrine. Crumbling stone, ivy choked with half a roof and a full puddle inside. Still, it's shelter. You duck under and tie regret to a post that looks stable enough to last through dinner. Inside, it's quiet. The kind of quiet that lets you hear your own blood. You sit, back against the damp stone, and take out the charm Marta gave you. It's warm again. Not hot, just pulsing faintly like a heartbeat at rest. You used to be afraid of that feeling. Now it's comfort. From your satchel, you pull the ledger. You'd stopped writing in it for a few days, maybe longer, but tonight feels like the right moment to pick up the quill. You turn to a fresh page and write, "It rained." Again, but not the same kind of rain. The ink bleeds slightly, the parchment damp. You continue. There was a woman on the road earlier. She wore yellow boots and talked to the crows like they owed her something. Said she'd been accused once, back when they still tested for guilt using pickled eels. She laughed about it. I didn't. You pause. Listen to the wind slide past the stones, then write. I'm starting to think the real danger wasn't witches at all. It was how badly we needed them to exist. Historians still argue whether the age of witch trials was driven more by genuine belief or by the hunger for control. But they rarely talk about boredom, or loneliness, or how fragile certainty really is when the nights get too long. You close the book for now. Outside you hear footsteps, slow, wet, hesitant. You stay still. A moment later, a man peers inside, older, hooded, eyes darting. You the traveler? He asks. You nod slowly. Depends. Why? He exhales. There's a boy. Sick, not normal. Says things in his sleep. Stuff he shouldn't know. People are scared. You stand slowly. Regret groans from his post. Show me, you say. The man leads you down a side path, through thickets, and across a shallow creek. The village is small, barely a cluster of cottages. Smoke drifts from chimneys. A dog watches you with suspicion. In one of the houses, a woman waits beside a low bed. The boy is maybe 9, pale, thin. His eyes flutter beneath closed lids. He mutters something. You kneel beside him. It's not Latin, not even words you know, but there's rhythm to it. Not demonic, just strange. You touch his forehead? Cool, but not feverish. He opens his eyes and stares straight through you. You've walked too close to the door, he whispers. You blink. What door? But he's asleep again. The mother sobs quietly. They say we should burn the blanket, that it's cursed, that he's been touched. You shake your head. He's dreaming. That's all. But dreams run deep, especially in children. She looks up, hopeful. So, no curse. You smile gently. Just imagination. Powerful stuff. You leave a small charm under the pillow. Not Marta's. Yours. Something you made from a pine cone and thread and a bit of belief. Later that night, the villagers gather. One of them brings you a bowl of stew. Another, shockingly, offers a dry cloak. You sit by the fire as the storm rages outside. The boy sleeps peacefully now, his breathing slow and steady. Someone asks, "You really think he's not cursed?" You shrug. Maybe he is, but curses don't always mean what you think they do. A pause. What do they mean then? You poke at the fire. Sometimes, you say, they're just the world's way of telling you to listen better. They mull that over in silence. Eventually, they drift to sleep, one by one. You stay awake, watching the embers fade. Marta's charm rests against your chest. Quiet now, but you still feel it. A soft thrum, a reminder that the world is vast, mysterious, and not everything strange needs to be feared. You stay in the village for 2 more days, just long enough for the boy to stop whispering strange riddles in his sleep and start asking for extra bread with honey. His color returns. So does his curiosity. He follows you around the village square, asking questions you don't know how to answer. Do crows tell jokes? Is garlic actually magic? Did you ever stab a ghost with that pokey thing? You answer honestly. Sometimes. Not really. And once. But it was just Gregory in a sheet. On the third morning, the fog lifts. And so do you. You mount Regret, who groans like a man being forced to attend his own execution, and begin the long road east. You're not sure what you're looking for anymore. A new village, maybe. A sign. Or just a little peace. Instead, you get a fork in the road and a man waving a shovel. "Excuse me," he shouts, breathless. Which man are you? The one who doesn't do the burning? You narrow your eyes. That's one way of putting it. He explains quickly. A death in their village. Strange circumstances. A woman found face down in her garden, mouth full of rosemary, eyes open, no signs of struggle. The village wants to call it sorcery. You sigh. Always with the herbs. You follow him to a tidy little hamlet nestled in a valley. The kind of place that looks innocent until someone accuses their neighbor of summoning wolves with soup. You're greeted by a crowd already gathered at the edge of the garden. The body is gone. They buried her fast, but the fear still hangs in the air like morning mist. They walk you to her home. Inside, everything is neat. Too neat. You walk slowly. Look at the shelves, the books, the dried herbs tied with string. You sniff the rosemary bundle. Then you find the journal. It's in a drawer, tucked under a piece of velvet. Inside, sketches of plants, fragments of songs, and one strange entry written in a hurry. If I die with rosemary in my mouth, it means I've finally done it. It worked, but not like I hoped. You close the book. This isn't sorcery. This is sacrifice. A woman trying something ancient, powerful, maybe even beautiful, and getting it wrong. You gather the village council. She wasn't cursed, you say. She was trying to heal, maybe herself, maybe someone else. They murmur. One man spits. Then why the herbs? Because, you say, she believed, and belief is powerful. Historians still argue whether herbalists were early scientists or mystical frauds. You think the truth is stranger. They were women trying to understand what no one else cared to. Bodies, pain, the way the world bruises us, and how we try to stitch it back together. You spend the evening burning incense in her honor, not because you have to, but because it feels right. Later, a child asks if she was a witch. You shrug. She was something better. She was brave. That night, you sleep in her bed. The smell of rosemary lingers. You dream of roots curling through stone, of songs hummed into dirt, of eyes that don't fear closing. You leave in the morning with her journal tucked under your arm. On the road again, you pass a stone carved with a name and no date. It's not hers, but you stop anyway. Say nothing. Just sit with the quiet. Regret nibbles at your sleeve. You let him. At sunset, you reach a crossroads where a man in a patched coat sits beside a cart full of spoons. He nods at you. Witch hunter, yeah? You pause. Then, not anymore. He grins. Good. Didn't like those types. You want a spoon? You pick one at random. It's crooked and a little burnt. It'll do, you say. He nods again. Most things do. You ride on. The charm at your neck is cool now. Resting. Sleeping. But not gone. You pass a scarecrow with a crown of nettles. You pass a well with a whispering rope. You pass a cottage that looks exactly like the one you saw in your dream last week. You don't stop. Not this time. Because you're starting to realize You don't need to catch witches to know the world is full of magic. And not the burning kind, the growing kind, the soft kind, the kind that hides in spoons and journals, and the way someone says your name when they trust you. The next village has a festival going on when you arrive. Colorful banners hang crookedly across the main street, and a fiddler plays wildly off-key, while 3 children chase each other in a circle near a wheelbarrow full of apples. A dog wearing a flower crown is barking at its own tail. In any other context, this might feel like joy. But you know better. The man who flagged you down at the edge of town is all nerves and apologies. We didn't invite the bishop, if that's what you're thinking. This has nothing to do with witchcraft. Probably. You dismount. Regret immediately slumps by a food stall, pretending to faint in protest. You said there was an accusation, you ask. The man, his name is Orwin, nods, glancing behind him. Yes. During last year's festival, a woman made wine from berries that don't grow here. At least, they're not supposed to. She said they came from a dream. You arch a brow. Dream berries? She called them night fruit. He swallows. People drank it. And, they started remembering things. Childhood stuff. Regrets. Secrets they thought they'd forgotten. You blink. So, therapy? He flinches. Some folks cried. One man tried to marry a scarecrow. A woman confessed to burying her husband's socks on purpose. It got very emotional. You rub your eyes. Is she still here? Orwin nods. Lives on the hill. Quiet type. Has a pond that reflects the stars even during the day. You sigh. Of course she does. You make your way to her cottage. It's small, round and moss-covered. A little like something out of a storybook a toddler would draw. You knock. A woman answers. She's older than you expect. Face lined with kindness, hair streaked with silver and plum. She looks you up and down. Let me guess. You've come to accuse me. No, you say. I've come to ask questions. She smiles. Then you're welcome. You sit with her by the pond. She brews tea made from something that smells like peppermint and dreams. You take a sip and feel clear, not euphoric, just awake. Where do the berries come from, you ask? They find me, she says. I don't grow them. They grow where memory needs them. You nod, like that makes sense. They don't hurt people, she adds. They just loosen what's stuck. You study her. You know you could be executed for that. She shrugs. You could be too, for listening. Fair point. Historians still argue whether memory-altering herbs existed in early Europe, or whether they were invented by later romantics. But you've tasted this tea. It's not about erasing. It's about unbearing. You walk back through the village that evening. The festival is still going. A group is dancing in a lazy circle, and someone's playing a flute so badly, it sounds like a bird with hiccups. People are smiling, really smiling. You're halfway through a roasted turnip when you hear the voice behind you. You've changed. You turn. It's a man in a traveling cloak, face hidden in shadow. His hands are too clean for a farmer. His voice too crisp for a local. Not enough, you say. Apparently, people still think I'm dangerous. He steps closer. Not dangerous, just unsettling. You ask questions where others demand answers. You narrow your eyes. You from the bishop's office? He smiles faintly. Not exactly. Let's say I collect patterns, stories that ripple. You don't respond. He takes it as permission to continue. We've noticed villages growing quieter after you pass through. Less fearful, more curious. You finish your turnip. Sounds like a problem. To some. Not to me. He nods. Good, because if you keep going, they'll come after you. The real ones. The ones who need people to stay afraid. You tilt your head. And you're warning me because... He shrugs. Because once I wore boots like yours, asked the wrong question, slept in the wrong forest. You study him. The charm at your neck pulses once. So does something behind his eyes. He leaves without another word. You sit down by the fire with the festival folk. One offers you pie. Another asks for a story. So you tell them one, a short one, about a mule named Regret and a boy who swallowed a crow's feather and never told anyone. They laugh. They listen. No one mentions witches. Not once. That night you lie under the stars, charm warm against your skin. The sky is full of scattered light, like spilled salt across velvet. And you realize you're not chasing witches anymore. You're chasing the places that need to be unafraid. The road out of the festival village is flanked by crooked trees and wild fennel, the stalks leaning like old women trading gossip in the wind. Regret trudges ahead, full of roasted roots and unusually cooperative, which makes you suspicious. He's up to something. You ride in silence for a while, letting the rhythm of hooves and breeze keep your thoughts from straying too far. But the conversation with the cloaked man replays anyway, slipping back into your head like water under a door. They'll come after you. You've heard that before. But this time, it feels like less of a warning and more of a promise. 3 miles out, a milestone catches your eye. A worn slab of stone with a barely visible carving of a fox biting its own tail. You've seen it before. Somewhere, but not in a village. You dismount, tie Regret to a bramble bush, which he immediately eats. You circle the stone, fingers tracing the moss-covered engraving, and then you hear it, singing. Faint. High. Not human. You follow the sound into the woods. It leads you to a clearing full of wild lavender and bee hums, and at the center, a ring of stones. Old ones. You know what it is before you step inside. A circle of silence. The sound disappears as soon as your boot touches the edge. Inside, it's eerily calm. No birdsong, no breeze, just your breath and the scent of something ancient. There's a figure sitting on the far stone. At first, you think it's a statue, but then she moves, just a tilt of the head. You're late, she says. You've heard that before, too. You waiting for someone, you ask? She nods. Always. You step closer. She's dressed in wool and fur and moss. Her eyes are cloudy, but she sees too clearly. There's something unsettling about how still she is. Are you a witch? You ask. She smiles. Are you still a hunter? You pause. No. Then it doesn't matter, does it? You sit on a stone opposite her. She offers you a gnarled root. You bite into it out of politeness. It tastes like regret and something sweet. You've changed, she says, echoing the man from the night before. I've heard. They won't like it. You shrug. They rarely do. She tosses you a small cloth pouch. You catch it. Inside is dirt, dark, rich, and warm. It pulses like Marta's charm once did. Plant that where fear blooms, she says. What'll grow? Something better. Historians still argue about the witch circles that dotted the countryside. Some called them fairy rings, others remnants of pagan rites. But the people who really knew, they never wrote it down. They just waited. The old woman stands, her joints cracking like tree limbs in frost. You'll know when it's time. You blink, and she's gone. You don't remember walking back to Regret, but you find him licking his own shadow, as if he's been waiting hours. Back on the road, you start to notice small things. Birds follow you in pairs. Every third tree leans slightly west. People begin greeting you before you've reached their gates. You arrive in the next village just after dusk. It's small, quiet. You're not even sure it has a name. But there's a gathering in the town square. Torches lit. Heads bowed. You think it's a celebration until you get closer. It's a trial. Not one of yours. A real one. A man is bound to a post, face bruised, one eye swollen shut. They say he whispered a spell into someone's soup, that the clouds rumbled when he spoke, that the baby in town cried for 3 days straight afterward. You push through the crowd. Who's leading this? You ask. They part around you. The woman in charge is wearing a silver necklace shaped like a dagger. I am, she says. Who are you? You hold up the ledger. The one who used to do this. The crowd mutters. Someone spits. You walk up to the accused man. His lip is cracked. He flinches at your approach. Did you curse the soup, you ask? He coughs. I sneezed, it was hot. You turn to the crowd. He sneezed. Someone yells, it thundered. You nod. Weather does that. They don't like it. The woman with the dagger necklace steps forward. You're protecting him. I'm unaccusing him. On whose authority? You gesture vaguely. The weather. She glares. You lean in, whispering. I've been to places where curses are real. This isn't one. She doesn't reply, but she doesn't stop you either. You cut the man loose. The crowd stares. He limps away. Doesn't say thank you, just vanishes. Sometimes that's all you get. That night, no one offers you a bed or a meal. You sleep in the woods beneath a birch tree that hums in your dreams, and in the morning, you plant the dirt from the pouch under its roots. You don't know what will grow, but you have a feeling it won't be fear. By now, you've stopped expecting gratitude. You've untied ropes, silenced chants, poured tea for grieving wives, and shared dried fish with accused charm weavers. And still, most folks don't know what to do with you. You don't burn people. You don't shout scripture. You don't wear the robes. That unnerves them. The old ways may be cruel, but they're familiar. Today you're walking through fog again. Always fog. Your boots slap wetly through a narrow marsh path, reeds brushing your sleeves, toads calling out warnings that no one translates. Regret trails behind, sulking. His hooves keep finding puddles deeper than his mood. The next village isn't marked on most maps. It sits on a crumbling hill, surrounded by blackthorn hedges and rumors. You get your first glance of it through the mist, twisting chimneys, narrow houses hunched like old men whispering secrets. A bell chimes long and low. You count 7 rings. Then a pause. Then 7 more. It's not a church bell. You know that instantly. It sounds more like a warning. At the entrance to the village, a woman waits. She's holding a lantern and a large crow feather. The combination feels intentional. Are you the one? She asks. You hesitate. I am a 1. She eyes the charm at your neck, nods once. Close enough. She leads you into the village without further explanation. The streets are silent, the windows shuttered. You pass no markets, no children, just closed doors and tense silence. She brings you to a hall. Inside, the village elders sit in a crooked circle of chairs that don't match. One of them is asleep. Another is carving a spoon with unsettling intensity. They look up. The one with the spoon speaks. You've come because we asked. Technically, you say, no one told me anything. I followed a rumor. A second elder, bearded and squinting, leans forward. Rumors are more honest than most invitations. They tell you what's happened. Over the last month, people have begun forgetting things, specific things. A mother forgets her child's name. A baker forgets how to knead. A priest forgets his own prayers. One man forgot his own face and shaved someone else's reflection instead. Witchcraft, you ask? Maybe, they say. Maybe not. They've already accused a woman. She lives in the tallest house. Hard to miss. She weaves fabric by moonlight, they say. Doesn't come to market. Her cat has different colored eyes. Of course it does. You go see her. The house is indeed tall. Crooked, smells of linen and boiled mint. The woman greets you calmly, pours you something that tastes like warmth. I'm not a witch, she says. You sip again. I'm not really a hunter anymore. She smiles. Good. She shows you her weavings, tapestries with scenes that seem familiar. One shows a tree you recognize. Another shows you, on a road you haven't walked yet. You dream these? You ask. I listen, then I weave. You pause. Listen to what? She touches her temple. The forgetting. It hums. Historians still argue about prophetic artisans, people who claim to hear threads in the world and reproduce them in cloth or paint. Most were ignored. A few were burned. The rest disappeared into legend. You spend the night in her house watching the shadows on her tapestries shift with the candlelight. She doesn't speak. Neither do you. By morning you understand. It's not magic. It's grief. The village is suffering the slow creeping weight of years piled on years, unspoken sadness, buried shame, things lost and never mourned. So they forget, because remembering hurts. You walk to the square, stand on an overturned barrel. Your curse, you say, is silence? They frown, murmur. You continue. You've buried too much. Loss without words becomes rot. Grief without ritual becomes poison. This isn't witchcraft. It's neglect. An elder shouts, "What do we do then?" You raise your voice, gentle but firm. You speak about the things that hurt, about the ones who left, about what you've lost and what you miss. A pause. Then someone whispers, "My daughter used to hum when she stirred the pot. I miss that." Another adds, "My brother laughed through his nose. It was awful. I hated it. I loved it." Soon voices swell. The tapestry woman weaves in the corner. Her fingers fly. You stay until sunset, then leave without a word. The next village is smaller and warmer. You're invited in without suspicion. They've heard of you. A boy runs up to you with a charm around his neck. "One of yours." You ruffle his hair. "Where'd you get that?" "Mama made it. Said you showed her how. Said you used to hunt witches." You smile. "I did. Until I realized there weren't any." He frowns. "None? None worth burning." That night, you sit under a canopy of stars with villagers who bring you stew and stories. Someone asks if you've ever been cursed. You think about the years you spent in black wool and wet boots, searching for evil in every cold glance and crooked smile. You nod. Once. And how'd you break it? You sip from your cup. "I stopped believing everything I was told." They laugh. And just like that, the curse loosens its grip a little more. You ride east the next morning with a satchel full of gifts. Fresh bread, a wool scarf someone insisted you take, and a small wooden spoon carved with your initials. The road feels different now. Less like escape, more like momentum. Even regret seems marginally less bitter, though that may be due to the pear he stole from a market stall when no one was looking. By midday, you reach a ridge overlooking a craggy valley. Below, smoke rises from a cluster of homes stitched into the hillside like stubborn weeds. A village, yes, but one without the usual symmetry. Roofs curve. Chimneys lean at unnatural angles. From this height, it looks like someone spilled a pocketful of houses and left them where they landed. You descend slowly. past mossy boulders and a suspiciously watchful goat. When you reach the first house, a woman peers out and immediately slams the door. You knock. Nothing. You knock again. Still nothing. Then a small hand opens the door beside you. A boy, maybe 10, eyes too wise. "You're the quiet one," he says. "I am, you ask?" He nods. "You're the witch hunter who doesn't hunt witches." "Depends who you ask." He beckons silently, and you follow. Through narrow streets you go, past iron bells hanging from archways, past bundles of herbs tied with twine and buried halfway in the mud like offerings. There's a hush here, not fear exactly, but wariness, like the entire village is holding its breath. He leads you to a hut larger than the others, its roof covered in feathers. Inside, a woman, old but unbent, stirring a pot with a stick that might once have been a sword. "You've come," she says, without turning. "I tend to do that." She motions to a stool. You sit. Regret waits outside, no doubt gnawing something inappropriate. The hut smells of cloves and pine tar. You see jars filled with liquids that change color when you blink, bones carved with runes, and a doll made entirely of thistle. "You were called," she says. "You've been walking toward this moment since your first false confession, since the first woman you doubted, the first truth you ignored." You swallow. "That's a lot to unpack." She doesn't smile. "This place is special. It hides things, not from fear, but from greed. There are people who would tear the fabric of the world to patch their own power. That's who's coming next." You shift on the stool. "Coming?" She ladles out something thick and red into a carved bowl. It smells like earth and oranges. "They've sent someone after you," she says. "Another kind of hunter. One who burns with certainty." You lower your voice. "Why me?" She finally looks at you. "Because you walked away, and people noticed." You sip. It tastes like memory. That night you sleep in her hut. She lets you take the cot while she dozes by the fire. At some point, you wake. The boy is sitting beside you, holding a piece of charcoal. "I dreamed you died," he says calmly. You blink. "How?" "They tied you to a stake," he says. "But the flames turned into birds, and they flew away with you." You close your eyes. Not a bad way to go. He leaves without another word. In the morning, you rise before the sun and gather your things. The old woman hands you a bone charm, shaped like a key. "For when words stop working," she says. You nod. You ride out quietly, fog curling behind you. The next village is tense. You hear shouting before you reach the square. A man stands atop a barrel, waving a holy book and declaring the end of indulgence. He wears a crisp black cloak, a gleaming badge, and boots polished so aggressively they could blind a heretic. You know the type. You used to be the type. He points to a young woman holding a baby, backed against a wall. "She speaks to roots," he declares. "She sings to sleeping cattle. She walks at dusk." You dismount, walk slowly toward them. "Have you tried asking her why?" you ask. The man turns, eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" You show the badge, your old one, cracked and dulled. "A colleague, you say?" "Sort of." "She confessed," he insists. "No," the woman says. "I explained." He steps toward her. "She invoked spirits. She invoked protection." You nod. "Sounds like someone scared." The hunter sneers. "You've gone soft." "Maybe. But I've also gone farther." He tries to push past you. You don't let him. For a tense moment, it's just you and him. Hunter versus former hunter. The old creed in his eyes, the new one in yours. Then a voice rises from the crowd. "She cured my daughter." Another joins. "She helped me sleep." Another. She gave me hope when the priest wouldn't listen. One by one, the voices grow louder. The hunter realizes he's outnumbered. He walks away, not quickly, but with fury. He'll report you, no doubt. Tell the order. Say you've fallen. Say you wear the face of mercy and the teeth of rebellion. Let him. That night, the villagers build a bonfire, but not for punishment, for stories, for warmth, for gathering. You sit among them, not above, not outside, among. Someone hands you a bundle of herbs. You don't ask what they're for. You trust. For the first time in years, you trust. Morning comes soft and golden, spilling through the trees like a secret that forgot how to whisper. The bonfire has burned down to embers, and the village is still. A few early risers sweep doorsteps or tend to goats, but most are inside, wrapped in the warmth of a night without fear. You linger at the edge of the square, watching the smoke drift into a sky unbothered by anything that happened yesterday. Regret chews on a bootlace. Someone's, not yours. You don't ask questions anymore. That's new. You think about the man from yesterday, the real witch hunter, polished, loud, sure of everything. Once upon a time, that was you. A badge, a list, a certainty so dense it left no room for questions. Now all you have is a pouch of mismatched herbs, a charm that glows when no one's looking, and a reputation built on not setting people on fire. You mount up and continue west, where the land begins to roll like tired shoulders. The trees grow older here, limbs heavy with history. You pass stone cairns, half swallowed by moss, and fields where the scarecrows wear necklaces of bones. By afternoon, you spot smoke, not the soft kind from hearths, the black kind. You press regret into a reluctant trot. The next village isn't burning, but it wants to be. A woman has been tied to a cart, hands bound in front of her. Her hair is wild, her face streaked with tears and fury. A crowd has gathered, not jeering, but watching, waiting. The man in the center has a torch. He wears no badge, no robe, just a thick coat and the look of someone who's been afraid for too long and finally decided to strike first. "She killed my son," he shouts as you dismount. The crowd murmurs. "She poisoned him. She gave him herbs." You step closer. The woman looks at you, blinking through ash and sun. "It was a cough," she says. "I gave him thyme and honey." You look at the man. "And what happened?" "He choked," the man roars. 2 nights later, died in his sleep. You nod. "That's awful." "He wouldn't have died if she hadn't meddled." "Maybe," you say. "Or maybe he would have died sooner without her help." Silence. Someone in the crowd coughs. "She's a witch," the man insists. "She's a healer," someone else mutters. "She buried a jar of milk under the tree." "To stop root rot," the woman shouts. "It's old practice." Historians still argue whether ancient folk rituals were practical wisdom or mystical nonsense. You've learned the answer is always both. You turn to the crowd. "Has she ever hurt anyone else?" Silence. "Has she ever threatened you?" Shakes of heads. "Then you're not afraid of her," you say. "You're afraid of the unknown." The man with the torch snarls. "Are you saying my son deserved to die?" "No," you reply gently. "I'm saying grief makes cruel promises. It says if you punish someone, the pain will stop." He lowers the torch, just an inch. "She didn't curse your boy," you say. "She tried to help." The man crumples slowly, torch falling into the dirt. A woman steps forward from the crowd and puts a hand on his back. He doesn't move. You untie the healer's hands. She nods at you. "I'm used to it. I hope that changes." She smirks. "You're new." You help her gather her things: a small pouch of dried nettle, a book with a broken spine, a locket containing a sketch of someone who looks suspiciously like Gregory. You don't ask. Later, the village is quiet again. You sit by the well, sipping tepid water and watching Regret try to start a fight with a chicken. The healer sits beside you. You're not like them, she says. No. You'll be hunted for this. I know. Why keep doing it? You think for a long time. Then, because someone has to remember that fear isn't always right. She hands you a small bottle. It'll help with the pain. What pain? She grins. The kind you don't know you're carrying. That night, you don't light a fire. You sleep under the stars, wrapped in your cloak, the bottle beside you, unopened. The charm around your neck pulses once, soft as breath. In your dreams, you see every woman who's ever been wrongly accused. They sit in circles. They laugh without fear. They pass herbs and secrets and the names of stars long forgotten. And they whisper, not to you, but through you. You wake just before dawn, and you write them down. Every name you could remember, not to accuse, but to honor. The wind shifts that morning. You feel it before you see it, a kind of turning in the trees, a hush that settles deep in the chest. Regret picks up on it too, snorts, stamps a hoof, and refuses his usual breakfast of stolen bread crusts and passive-aggressive glares. You pack in silence. The healer is already gone. Left you a pressed flower and a note with only 2 words. Keep walking. You do. The road narrows as it winds into the hills. Tall grass brushes your knees, and the sky above turns the color of pewter. There's a tension to the air. Like everything's waiting for something, you reach the outskirts of a village that doesn't appear on any map. There's no sign, no greeting, just a single building standing at the edge of a meadow, square, pale, with a red-painted door that looks freshly washed. You dismount, tie Regret to a fence post. He does not complain. He is very busy pretending to be invisible. You knock. The door opens without a sound. Inside, the room is spotless, cold. 1 chair, 1 desk, 1 man seated waiting. You recognize him instantly. Not personally, but by type. Black coat, high collar, the unmistakable posture of a man who has written laws about things he's never touched. He doesn't stand. Witch hunter, he says, as if it's still your name. Not anymore. He nods once precisely, but you were. You say nothing. He gestures to the chair. You sit. He takes out a book, bound in leather, unlabeled, opens it to a page marked with red thread. Your name appears here, he says, twice, once as investigator, once as heretic. Busy year, you murmur. He ignores the joke. You've been seen in the company of known charm makers. You've contradicted official findings. You've released accused individuals without formal trial. All true. You've carried unauthorized talismans, used unverified herbs, spoken at forbidden gatherings. You smile. Anything I haven't done? He flips to another page. You've also failed to submit quarterly reports, and you've used humor in official documents. Now that, you say, I won't deny. He closes the book. You understand this can't continue. You nod. That's why I left. You don't get to leave, he says quietly. You were sworn. You were bound. You lean forward, elbows on the desk. Sworn to what? Silence? Submission? A badge that means nothing if I can't look someone in the eye and know they're safe? He watches you. It wasn't always this way, he says after a long moment. There was a time when we protected the people. No, you reply. There was a time we scared them into obedience, and called it protection. He sighs. Do you think what you're doing changes anything? You reach into your satchel and pull out the ledger. Old, worn, heavier than it used to be. You hand it to him. He opens to the first page, then the next, then another. Not accusations, not evidence, just names, dates, moments, stories. The woman who cured her neighbor's cough. The girl who danced in the rain and made flowers bloom. The man who carved dreams into candle wax. He reads, slowly, and for a second, you see something crack behind his eyes. Not regret, recognition. Then it's gone. He closes the ledger, pushes it back across the desk. Even if you're right, he says, you're alone. You shake your head. I was, you say, but not anymore. He studies you. They'll come. I know. They'll send more than words next time. Good, you say. I'm better at fire than I used to be. He almost smiles, then stands. You should go. You rise. I wasn't planning to stay. Outside, the sky begins to break open. Sunlight drips through the clouds like gold poured slowly from a priest's hand. Regret waits, patient and unamused. You mount. Look back once. The man is watching from the doorway, not waving, but not stopping you either. You ride on. That night you stop in a forest clearing and make camp. You light a small fire, warm your hands. From your satchel, you pull a torn scrap of parchment. Add a name. One more. Not for punishment, for remembrance. Historians still argue about the ones who disappeared from the records. Witch hunters who stopped hunting. Villages that slipped out of reach. Fires that were never lit. You know the truth. Some of them kept walking. Some of them planted what others feared to touch. And some of them became stories. You lie back on the earth, stars overhead like the freckles of gods. You whisper their names, the ones you saved, the ones who saved you, and then you sleep. No dreams tonight, just peace. The road bends east again. You follow it without thinking, the way your body follows breath. Habitual, necessary. Villages begin to thin out. Trees grow taller. You see fewer fences, more sky. You pass a stone wall crumbled into moss. Once a marker for borders, no one defends anymore. A man rides by in the other direction, leading a donkey carrying a basket of bones. He nods, says nothing, keeps going. That feels right. Somewhere between towns you stop looking for signs. Instead, you listen. A crow follows you for half a day, cawing when you hesitate at forks in the road. You let it choose. You've trusted stranger things. You arrive in a valley where no one remembers the bishop, where no one remembers witch hunters at all. A small settlement, maybe 5 homes. No church, just a circle of stones near the stream where people leave bread for whatever watches. They welcome you without questions. You sleep in a loft above a cheese shed, your pillow smelling faintly of thyme. You help mend a fence, patch a roof, teach a boy to read from your old ledger. His mother asks what the book was for. You tell her it used to be for fear. Now it's for names. The stars here are brighter. One night, someone knocks on the cheese shed door. It's Marta. She's older, or maybe wiser. It's hard to tell. She doesn't explain why she's here. She doesn't need to. She sits beside you, hands on her knees. Do they still chase you? She asks. Less, you say. Or maybe I've just stopped running. She nods, hands you a pouch of seeds. Plant these somewhere that's forgotten. She says. You do. On a hillside where no one's buried, but where you can feel the grief. The soil accepts the offering. You move on. One final stop. A village by the sea. The cliffs rise like tired giants, and the wind carries gull cries and the taste of salt. A girl meets you on the path. She holds a charm you carved seasons ago. My grandmother says you helped her. You nod. I remember. She said you changed the way people pray. You chuckle. Not sure I meant to. She grins. She says that's the best kind of change. You spend a week there, teaching, listening, telling stories around the fire, not of witches, but of why they were imagined, of lonely women and clever children, of grief and need, and the strange, soft magic of belief. On the last night, someone brings out wine. Someone else brings a lute that only knows 2 songs. You sing anyway. And when you lie beneath the stars, you feel it. The job is done. Not finished, but no longer yours. You pass the ledger on to the girl. She holds it like a relic. Write everything you tell her, especially the boring parts. She nods. What do I do if they come again? You smile. Ask questions. Keep asking. Then one morning, you wake before the sun, pack your satchel, leave a note in the ledger. The fire went out. I didn't. You don't take the path west or east. You just walk. Somewhere in the trees behind you, the charm glows once more, then fades. Not gone, just quiet. Like all good things that change the world by staying soft. The fire is low now. The boots are off. The cloak is folded in the corner. The tools are tucked away. Quiet, patient, resting. You're lying in the grass, eyes half-lidded, while the stars hum above. Somewhere an owl calls out once, then falls silent, as if even it doesn't want to disturb the stillness. Your breath slows. The path you've walked fades behind your mind's eye, stone by stone, village by village. The faces blur, soften, drift like smoke. The sound of torches hissing in the rain fades into the hush of distant waves. You remember the names you wrote, the hands you untied, the silences you broke. You didn't save everyone, but you stopped pretending that everyone needed saving. And in doing that, you saved something deeper. You saved the space for people to be strange, for people to be whole, for people to be seen. Let the grass cradle your weight. Let the scent of lavender and old books fill your lungs. Let go of the questions. Let them settle into the soil like seeds. They will grow in time, not into fear, not into fire, but into understanding, into wonder, into peace. You are not the hunter anymore. You are the witness. You are the walker. You are the one who chose not to burn. Sleep now. No chains, no trials, just dreams. If you've made it all the way to the end, leave a comment and tell me what story you'd like to hear next. I genuinely enjoy seeing and reading every kind word you share. Thank you for watching. Sweet dreams and good night.